Hey, Annette.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Okay. Yeah, we're going to be talking about our education project and our stakeholder project. Correct? Yeah? Yeah?
Is it correct? Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. So that's what we're doing. Does anyone have a burning passion to go first?
I do.
Elena does. Elena, go first. Tell us about your project.
Okay, well, so for my educator project, I had several that I was interested in, but I decided to take one off of a lesson plan that I did last semester. And the lesson plan was to teach, the lesson plan was geared toward cross-country students, teaching them about shin splints. And so since it's spring semester, I'm going to gear it towards all the track and field students, or I should say athletes, student athletes. And so the goal is to kind of have this done in one lesson towards the beginning of their season or as soon as possible from the deadlines of this project. And then the lesson will be about an hour long. It'll go through the description of what shin splints are, what the risk factors are for getting them, the basics. I'm not going to try to delve too deep into it because they are high school athletes that don't have a background in this stuff. And then kind of like ways to prevent them, like working at home through certain exercises or stretching a certain way, and things like that. And so that's going to be like the basic lecture towards the beginning on PowerPoint, and then the activities are going to kind of coincide with that. So one of the risk factors may be that the type of shoe that you're wearing. And so I'll have them turn to each other, take off their shoes, and like I'll show them how to examine their shoes, and then they'll examine their partner's shoes and tell them, what could be wrong or could be right about their shoe, why it's good for running, why it may not be good for running, and how it may cause shin splints. So that can be one activity. Another fun thing that I did in undergrad, which I think is super cool, is laying out paper, like a big roll of paper, and then having everyone go barefooted and paint the bottom of their feet and then walk, and then that shows them the type of arch that they have, which will also be a risk factor. And so that could be another fun activity. So I'm planning on having like 2 or 3 fun things kind of like interchangeable with the PowerPoint so that they aren't too just bored for like 20 or 30 minutes. And so that's kind of the whole thing. And then I plan on measuring the level of knowledge that they acquired right after the lesson, kind of like a quiz-like style of what they learned from my lecture and stuff. And then obviously 3 weeks later, I will kind of send out more of a survey and see what knowledge that they have retained. And maybe kind of have like an essay question or something that if they've had shin splints, what have they done for them before they came to me or something like that. So that just kind of shows that they've been able to apply it if they needed to. And then for the stakeholder project.
I'm going to stop you there. I'm sorry.
Yes.
So many good ideas in your project and so many questions in my head. Do you think it's easiest if we go through just project by project?
Oh, that would be a good idea. Yeah, you're right. Go ahead.
Love the idea. Prevention, worth a pound to cure. Couple questions. Do you do indoor track or is it just outdoor?
It'll be just outdoor.
Okay. Have you gotten a chance to talk to the coaches about it yet? Okay. That's going to be, from what I see, the biggest obstacle, because any coach, I don't know your coach, but giving you an hour, that's like asking to give you $1 million. So that would be one obstacle to overcome. Convince a coach first. I love your activities. I really like the step on paper. Now with that, this is where I can't recall. Do they make different track cleats for the different foot types?
Not necessarily, no. Now, obviously, you can have like certain insoles for your foot type within the spikes, but I don't think I've ran track and I never knew about buying certain spikes for a certain foot type.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like getting like a Dr. Scholl's thing.
It's either like long distance sprinter spikes. It's usually it.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking, but I've been out of the game for so long. So I guess my question is, how are you going to translate the activity into application? Are you going to talk about this is your foot type, this is what you want to wear for comfort outside of track?
Yeah. So the goal is, I know since Faith doesn't have their own track, I can go to the neighboring school's track like once a week, kind of like what I did at my school when I was in high school. And so the rest of the time, you just wore normal running shoes to practice in. Which
Okay.
Faith does. So that's why I thought it would be still pretty applicable to them as well. Because that's kind of what they learn most of the time to train.
Yeah, if they're only cleats one practice and then competition, yeah, I totally agree. The ever question of why do I care? Not me, the athlete.
Right.
How are you going to overcome the barrier of trying to convince a high school athlete that he needs to prevent because they're in the invincible stage where they're never going to get injured ever, ever, ever?
The thing that I can do with them is kind of show them some of the stats of the amount of shin splints I've already been dealing with, and showing them how long maybe some of the athletes have already been dealing with them, and when they decide to come to me and how much rehab or how much intervention that they actually apply, which is pretty little for high school students. And so most of the shin splints I've been working with now have taken a while to get over. And so I can kind of just present those in the beginning, and try to get them aware more or less of like, okay, this is something that you may not think is important, but won't clear up because you won't be able just to stop running for a couple weeks in a row. And so maybe kind of show them the importance of like at least coming to me early enough if they do feel like this is coming on, and we can approach the intervention that way.
I like that concept. 2 potential barriers.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a small school or a tight-knit athletic community, they're going to be able to figure it out even if you follow HIPAA. Even if you don't give a name, they're going to be like, oh, I know who they're talking about. And then that patient could feel slighted. One thing, I don't know if there's any videos of any Olympic runners, but I bet they have a prehab program. Maybe that may be a way to encourage them too. Be like, hey, you want to run fast? Look at this guy.
Right.
This is what he does.
That's a
really good.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm taking over your project. I need to shut up.
This is a good idea. Awesome. Do we want to do all the projects, or do we want to go around and do education first and then we go into
Yes. Yeah.
Let's do education first.
I can go real quick here. So right off the bat, I was just kind of trying to take like the mini habits assignment kind of like concept where you're just thinking small, and you think, okay, what's like one problem? And so, and you know, my coaches are okay on it.
I'm not choking.
Most of my coaches, like, they know who I am. You know, they respect what I do and everything, but I still want to keep that vibe where it's like, okay, you're only here to like take the kid's ankle and like get them out of here. It's more of like a oh yeah, you're only like PRN type thing, like, hey, how's it going?
You're only here for
right, yeah. So
a couple things.
Right, and I don't think they truly understand like, what training is and what an athletic trainer is and what their role is, especially in a secondary setting. So that's basically what I'd want to do. I want to just educate them, faculty, maybe students about this, but I kind of have them in their own little like categories. So like, do I want to just only hit faculty, or do I only want to hit coaches, or 2 of the 3? You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I think right now I'm leaning towards more just like faculty and coaches, and then the students. Hoping maybe for like a trickle down effect, or just because I work with them, that interaction will help better educate them. Um, so if I'm looking more at like coaches and faculty, like I know they're busy, really like better things to do. Um, but I was thinking of maybe making like kind of like a quick, fun presentation using like Prezi or PowerPoint, or maybe even like just making a really good infographic to maybe Ansley's grade.
Cheater.
So yeah. And then as far as like just measuring and seeing if they learned anything, it's just maybe like creating like a quick Google survey and sending it out to all of them before and after. So like I could give it like, you got like a month to look at this, and then do like a right after, or like a, I don't know, post presentation quiz, and then like again like a month or 3 weeks later or whatever, again, see if they still kind of get it.
One, I like that idea of educating coaches. I think that's gonna start the ball, because if the coach knows what you can do, then they can be the ones to tell their athletes, hey, you need to go see Max. I like that. Couple questions on your faculty. You mentioned them. Are you there during the school day?
Some days, yeah. I usually, some days if I
But not consistently?
I usually do, but some days I'll show up around like noon and do paperwork or.
Okay. But not a set schedule?
No, it's usually I get that too.
Okay.
But,
I was, if this were my project, I would start with just coaches,
okay.
because chances are the coaches are faculty as well, and then
Yeah.
faculty will talk amongst themselves in the office break room. One thing you could do to help educate about your skills is to find a niche that they personally would want to have help with. If you look at coaches, they're more than likely former athletes. Former athletes typically have injuries. So you could work with Franciscan Health if you wanted to even get them involved with more ideas. But see if a complimentary injury screen, make a flyer with an infographic of what athletic trainers can do, and then encourage coaches to schedule one-on-one with you so you can do more one-on-one education. Because my experience of, and my experience is 1 in a million. I'm not expecting everybody to have the same views, but when I try to do talks or what I call lunch and learns to coaches in the past, they were kind of like, yeah, we'll show up because you're giving us free pizza, but we're going to sit in the corner and talk the whole time because we don't care. And I'd hope that would not be your experience. But I think if your goal is to educate, you're going to see a better outcome if it's one-on-one education versus making somebody read an infographic or hoping that they'd watch a video. You'd hope that the coach would want to do it, but sometimes adults are the hardest people to teach.
Yeah.
I agree with him. Like I mean, from hearing some of your kind of personal stories of work and everything, like you're gonna need to find something that the coaches are actually gonna care about, because it doesn't seem like, I could think a lot of us can say we have probably several coaches that wouldn't care what we had to say, or especially if it's like an official meeting where they have to sit a certain amount of time just listen to me talk about myself. So I would even I like the idea of like what you can provide for them. And so gearing it, like you can do something maybe like kind of survey and ask about like what areas do you find weakness, like, or injuries in the most areas of the body on your athletes? Like, what is the biggest issue on your team, and does this bother you? Well, this is what I can do for you, and this is the services I can provide. And so, like, you know, every coach, every team has their biggest issue as and that's what breaks down the team by towards the end of the season.
So it's almost like a free kind of consultation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like, oh, well, I see you've been from like looking at my notes over these certain months and hearing it from you. Like I've seen it shoulder injuries on your team. Like here's what I can do. So like definitely gear it towards something that maybe bothers them, but you just don't know bothers them.
That's awesome. I love that idea, Elena.
Yeah, no, that'd be great because especially with your squad, like, I see oh, my wrist is broken because we don't know what we're doing. So, okay, yeah, no, that's a really good idea. Yeah. Now, what do you got?
I'm gonna, before I talk about me, Elena, back to your education. You said you wanted to do a 3-week follow-up, right?
Well, I think at least 3 weeks. I think it's required on how much information they retained. I think it's part of the outcome measures that we have to do.
Yeah. But sorry, what I meant to get at with that was, what do you hope to do with that information that you pull out? Are you going to give another lesson, or are you going to pull the patient or athletes aside one by one and follow up with them if they don't retain it?
One, I feel like I could do several things. So within that 3-week time span that I'm waiting, if I get people from the track team that come up to me and now we're working then those people are going to be some of the people I consider during the follow-up period and like, okay, did they come to me? I know these people did because early and see maybe if the others did have shin splints, maybe why they didn't come to me for help or something like that. And also like if it was clear from the follow-up survey or questionnaire, whatever it's going to be, that most of them have not retained a lot of information, then maybe I could do kind of a follow-up, maybe mini lesson or kind of do an individual review or something like that.
Okay. So not only are you looking at what information they retain, but you're going to follow up to see if they've gotten injured in that time.
Yeah, and I think, and normally I shy away from doing all individual stuff, but the team I think is going to be pretty small. So it's not going to be too much work on their part or my part for me to be able to pull them aside sometime during the day and kind of talk about stuff.
Okay, perfect. I'm following now. That completely makes sense. Thank you.
All right.
So my education, I'll go over quickly. New role of teaching full time was gonna build a lesson plan for for students, because I'm teaching all new to me courses. So I have material from previous instructors, but it's kind of to the point of here's a PowerPoint and that's it kind of thing. So I was going to build a lesson plan. I'm teaching general medical conditions, therapeutic exercise, intro into athletic training, which is people in what's now the pre-AT program for undergraduate, or exercise science majors. Excuse me.
You okay?
No.
Been up a long.
Right? However, in my brainstorming, I was throwing around ideas and then had a complete change in direction reading Matt's feedback. Thank you, Matt, for the feedback. It was awesome. He had said, because one of my goals for the program development was building the preceptor program for Trinity International University. I don't know all the preceptors, and this semester I'm in charge of clinical education coordination. I don't know if that's going to be next semester as well, depending on if the other faculty gets better. Long story. Anyway, so my education plan is to build a preceptor training day for all TIU preceptors. So that's all I've got. That just came today, so I don't have much. So if you guys want to talk about what you liked or didn't like because you guys were preceptors before, right? Oh,
We came straight in.
We're fresh out.
We're fresh. I would like to.
Lena, for some reason I thought you had been out for a while. Well, never mind.
I just look like a preceptor, don't I?
Well, you can tell me what you liked about the preceptors you had in undergrad.
Yeah, I mean, ones that were, I mean, we all have our bad days and everything like that, but like, regardless of like having like a tough day or anything like that, the ones who are still like they realize that, yeah, you still have like this much time with this student today, like bad day, but let's keep the learning going, because even at like if you're a coach and like you're yelling at me or to like I can still be like, okay, this is what's going on, but within reason. If it's
they're understanding.
yeah, they're understanding, they're still able to be there for you, teach you, and I hated it, but I appreciate it now, like preceptors that like just ask you why, like, scripts why. That was always cool.
I have several questions.
Yes.
So you teach at what university again?
Trinity International University.
I've never heard of that.
It's a very small school. It's legit though.
Legit. Are they transitioning?
We've already transitioned. So one of the other courses I teach is kind of the clinical course for the master's level.
How many preceptors do you have?
Well, I just got the information this week, and I think we have 12 on roster, but we kind of rotate through them because some of them get burnt out, and so we don't use everyone because we typically only have 5 to 7 students per program.
Have you been a preceptor?
Me, I was a preceptor, 2012, 2013, but I only had one student, and that was at the military site.
So, like, okay, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but like,
no, please.
Utilize these other preceptors that also maybe have had the same amount of experience or maybe more than you to maybe help guide this education for the newest preceptors.
That's a good idea.
So like you can utilize these people to help you. Maybe they have strengths that you don't on preceptorship, or they've seen a lot in a certain area when it comes to teaching or in the preceptor role than you have. So I think it's a cool idea to maybe start collaborating to see who may be interested in helping you do this. Like obviously you have to teach the majority of it because you have to because of the project, but just an idea, or you can get their thoughts. Yeah. And then the other thing that I really like, I definitely like this. I could see this being kind of like several days, or definitely like maybe like 2 or 3 follow-up kind of lessons. I think it's hard to just talk about preceptorship in one day or in a couple hours. There's a lot to it. But I really like this idea. I think it's really good. I think it's going to be a lot of work, but I think it's a good idea.
I like your idea of follow-up, and thanks to technology, I think it may be a thing where we can just maybe make videos or do a video.
Yeah, like you're talking about like when you're going to do your follow-up, at least a 3-week required one, maybe you can have them each make a little video about something that they may have improved within their preceptorship practice from learning whatever from you or something like that. As an outcome. I don't know.
Yeah, because one thing I wanted to have with the conversation with the preceptors is use of pro and crows. Because one athletic trainer we have as a preceptor has been practicing for many years, and he tells our students, listen, when you go to do the BOC, don't focus on what I do, because when I took the BOC, it's a lot different than what you're taking. So he admits his weakness per se. So he would be one that I'd be interested to see what it looks like if he's doing any outcome measures.
Yeah, and the other thing is, you guys have transitioned. Preceptors have to take on a kind of a more immersed role as well. Like, I think preceptors are going to be a lot more involved with the transition. They are already involved. So kind of maybe like how much more involved or how much more they pursue the student and how they want to see them develop with this transition now that they're required to do more as students.
Yeah.
So,
Cool. Thank you.
I really like the idea. All right, advocacy time.
Yeah, let's do the stakeholder.
Cool. So mine isn't as well developed as my educator idea, but so I have two things. One, my first idea is to look at the ACL prevention program for the soccer teams or the following fall sports. The majority of the ACL tears came from the soccer athletes. And so it's just something that I figured was a need and would be good to start integrating prevention programs into faith, because I doubt that they've ever had one done there before ever. So the goal is to kind of meet up with all the fall sport coaches, or at least one from each team, and then the athletic director, and then kind of go over some of the stats and the importance of ACL prevention programs. But the other thing is, like, I'm going to obviously have to come up with this prevention program. And I'm not sure about like length of time, how involved the coaches are going to have to be or anything, because I've never like put in place an ACL prevention program. And I know that they can be kind of like an ongoing process. So I'm thinking that it could also be, I could break it down, and instead of maybe doing like an official prevention program in preseason, like we could focus on more certain types of conditioning for ACLs in preseason, and then do like a certain type of warm up that is more beneficial, or something smaller throughout the season, so that they just keep up what they already started. So, but the goal is to present this to the coaches in kind of one meeting, and then follow up with to see what their thoughts are on it, or maybe their thoughts on when I could implement some of this stuff. I don't know.
Oh.
No, go ahead.
Oh.
That's I'm done.
Okay.
I haven't developed it very well, so.
No, I think it's a good idea. You kind of touched on it a little bit, but kind of not so much like taking away like the depth and the benefits from it, but putting it in a way where you incorporate it into a warm up.
Yeah.
Or I mean, this may be more work on your end, and trusting the student athletes, but creating a good prevention program, and then create some sort of like accountability thing. So like they have to sign like the date.
Almost kind of like the Mini Habits website, where they check mark whether they decided to, like, if I decided to have something more for the summer, or the last half of the summer, I get it all together onto like a website where they kind of just do a personal check mark of whether they did it that day.
But I think for that to be successful, though, you'd have to have an incentive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There would have to be some sort of incentive for them to remember to.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Is like, I honestly, the fall coaches are pretty good. They let me do pretty much whatever I want. They're pretty understanding. But it's getting the athletes to be compliant. Like, if the athletes aren't compliant, the coaches usually don't really argue. Like, they're just kind of like, oh well, whatever happens happens.
Well, I mean, what if you did a thing where you pick 2 days out of the week and you just extend the practice a little bit longer?
Yeah.
keep them after. But then again, they'll be tired, fatigued, and
Or we do it before practice.
But then again, I'm sorry, I'm being devil's advocate, but like
No, like that's what I needed.
That's coach's time. Like we're after school, that's coach's time with an athlete.
I like the idea of, like you said, incentive. Going back to that, competition. Are the players pretty competitive within the group?
I would say the boys are, the girls not so much.
Okay, so yeah, you may need two different incentives then for the two teams.
And non-compliance, I can already foresee being on the girls' team. I think the guys' team and the guys' coaches would definitely want to do this. He's the most understanding out of all of them, so like he would probably be willing to give me some of his time to do this if that prevents injuries, because some of the ACLs came from this. Could be something. Yeah. But that was my main idea. The other one was trying to advocate for towards maybe parent groups to start looking more into concussion therapy, because we've had a lot of concussions this year. But my problem with this, I already see the problem, is that a lot of these parents or families are locked into a certain hospital's insurance. And that's the number one reason why they don't go to Franciscan. And Franciscan's the only one with the therapy. So I don't really know. I kind of got stuck on that one, so I don't really know what else. But yeah, can't really do insurance, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that would take some creative thinking to get through that.
So I think I'm just gonna maybe stick with the ACL. So see how it goes. Because I know that they are all for me incorporating my own therapy or whatever I can do. But
I mean, it'd be a big egg to fry, but maybe teaming up with Jared, maybe even Craig, or maybe even a couple of the PTs from Franciscan, and kind of creating some sort of presentation. And
yeah, that's actually what I was originally thinking, was like kind of doing the majority of a presentation on concussions and concussion therapy and some of the new research out there, and then Jared kind of butting in at the end, like last 15 or 20 minutes, and advocating for Franciscan itself, while I'm just advocating for majority of the athletes.
Jared, he was in the DAT, but some things happened where it just didn't really work out for him. But super smart guy, really great guy, really big on his concussion stuff right now. Huge advocate for it. I mean, he could talk your ear off for a couple hours about it. Just
he's helped with this.
Oh yeah, he's awesome.
Program. Yeah,
really awesome. So yeah, I mean,
I guess I could do that, and it's just more. I mean, it's just an advocacy. It's not, and we're literally just talking to stakeholders. It's not like any of us can force any of this to happen necessarily. Yeah. So.
And the worst they can say is no.
Yeah.
So.
Are there any free apps as far as concussion education? I haven't ever looked into it.
I'll look now. I don't know. I'm sure. Not on concussion therapy. But anyways, you guys go ahead and I'll look at apps.
Again, I'll just go real quick here. So I kind of got like 2-3 different ideas really. One of them is kind of just either expand the room I'm in or find like a bigger one and try and work off that, because right now I'm kind of just working out of a utility closet. And I've got this big ice machine, and I got team managers coming in for like 20 minutes filling up ice bottles, and it's hard to do evaluations and have enough room for 3-4 kids to do rehab therapy in the hallway while I'm inside the room helping somebody out and actually giving them great use of my time. and their time and to really benefit them. So that's kind of that. But the only issue I have is that I've made pretty good use of the space I have right now. So the argument I have against myself is, okay, well, just
Okay.
Then so the other couple things is, I don't have a hydrocculator, and there's no what?
I don't have a heat pad.
Well, me neither. I don't either. Lately, I've had coaches come to me and hey, can we put some can we get a heat pack for this kid, or there be treatments where
You can use that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There we go.
If the coaches are starting to request it.
Yeah.
Right.
A couple would be and there've been treatments where I would need one, or even if I had a 10, that would go a long way.
I'm gonna pause you there before I lose this thought. Has anybody from Franciscan Health seen the room you're operating in?
Yes.
Who was it?
Sarah, Elena, Blaine, and
No, sorry. What was their role with the company, with the organization?
Oh yeah.
Were they the safety managers or?
Oh no, it's just been athletic trainers.
Okay. This is tread lightly, but this is something where if there's a contract between Franciscan Health and the school, again, tread lightly, but you almost could use Franciscan Health in your corners, because talking to you previously, it doesn't sound like that meets health standards. You said there's no GFI, right? Yeah. So you're dealing with water with no GFI. That's a big problem when we look at safety. What if a water hose broke on the hydroculator?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, there's literally just a strip of outlets on the wall that's flush with the table.
Yeah. I mean, go back to your administration class. Go back to what you guys learned as far as protocols for safety and use that as an argument. And you may not even need to get Franciscan Health involved, but what I had in mind is asking them to do a site visit, and hopefully, since there is a contract, that the site visit would go over safety. That's what should happen. And then your manager could be like, oh, wow, that's really dangerous. We should get you out of a closet.
Yeah. And another thing, too, is the whole money thing with the high school. I've asked plenty of times of okay, what's my budget for the year? And they'll be just don't go over $500, or just don't spend $300. So it's okay, well, how it's kind of hard for me to gauge.
That's fair. I think you're discrediting yourself on that, though. Yes, it'd be nice to have money, but I don't think you need it to be an effective athletic trainer. You mentioned TINs. Yeah, it's nice, but I don't think that it makes patients heal any faster. It feels good. But if go off of what you do have, and you can even use that, say, hey, this year I can keep the budget low if we focus on therapeutic exercise and manual therapy, but that stuff requires room. Let's work here. So if they want to kind of lowball you on budget, use that towards pushing for a bigger room.
Kind of the idea, like you said, I've kind of had in the back of my head, but I was thinking about that earlier today. I was like, okay, well, if I just had a little bit more space, I could add just a wall with hooks on it and buy a $20 set of bands from him. Hook those up, and I can have
Do you utilize your weight room?
Oh,
Did you follow my advice from over break and make friends with your custodian staff?
Yep. I've started getting names down and saying hello.
Good. They're the people that will know where stuff can be moved and where extra space can happen.
Yep. All right. Well, what are you up to here? What's stakeholder?
Excuse me. So since I'm teaching full time now, I still work for Athletico as PRN. But discussions with Dr. Games highly encouraged me to set something more consistent for the manual therapy courses. So I will be volunteering at the CIU Athletic Training Room, doing more rehab, more clinical work. I will be on the sidelines. I won't be doing, the day-to-day stuff, but I'll have, a certain number of hours where patients will be scheduled with me. More, I don't want to say the more difficult cases, but talking with the athletic trainers, they're thinking the patients that should be in physical therapy, but either their insurance won't cover it or the patient refuses to go off campus. So with that, I will be a new face to coaches, at least. And so stealing Kendall's idea from last semester, she did a 1 hour recovery, and hers was for mental wellness. But I like the idea of a 1 hour recovery for physical wellness. So I'd like to have the stakeholder of coaches get involved and encourage or educate them on the importance of just a recovery time. And so I would be leading all athletes, not just injured athletes, all athletes through like a yoga or a flexibility or foam rolling classes. Topics to be determined, but that's what I would like. Question.
I was about to ask you that, but do you think it could be something where, like, if you were able to do it every week, then you had like a different topic for each week?
What was that again? I'm sorry, you broke up.
Like, I was thinking, like, if you were able to do this recovery hour every week, then you could either have a different way to recover every week or a different topic, or you could maybe like even send out a survey and see what people are most interested in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that idea a lot. I think Kendall's really turned out well, so I don't see how this wouldn't turn out well.
Yeah. The only part the part that I'm looking at your guys' feedback, I was gonna excuse me, have participants fill out a fatigue severity scale or a short form McGill pain questionnaire. But that's more for patients or for athletes. So I don't know if that's enough to bring back to coaches or if I should survey the coaches themselves for the perception of the program.
Okay, just to make sure so that are you gonna do this recovery hour with all the athletes or only patients?
All the athletes, so not just injured athletes or patients. I want to do it with all athletes.
That you want to use it, but is specifically geared towards patients?
Not necessarily. At least how I was reading them. The fatigue severity scale. Let's see if I can pull it up and share my screen. Oh, which one's this? Am I allowed to share my screen? Yes. Share. So the fatigue severity scale, I think is general enough.
That would be great. If you survey the athletes and then you needed for this recovery time, you brought those results to the coaches and be like, these are where the numbers are, but we could really bump these numbers up and improve their overall performance based on recovery time.
Yeah.
My only concern is that, like, are you going to be able to like collect the team and do it together? Because I think it was simple for Kendall because it's high school and they're all together and you can just get them all at one time. So I'm assuming that's what you're planning on doing because college students are everywhere all the time.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. And that's where I'm struggling is, if spring sports, the nice thing is we don't have that many spring sports. So we're just looking at baseball, softball, and spring football. Um, I may just start with baseball and softball. I think their schedules coincide more than football. And this is where I'd like to talk to the athletic trainers on staff and see what their perception is. I know it's going to be hard to get the football involved only because we are a relatively young team, brand new coach this year. The rumor is all the players hate the coach, and so I think 60 to 65% of the team is leaving after this year. So having the football athletes come to recovery when they already have plans to not play next year, I don't think it's going to help anybody.
well, I guess it doesn't hurt to try.
The
Yeah, I think it did.
the other one I'm looking at. Oh, go ahead.
Given the incentive, like, yeah, well, if you're leaving, like, you might as well leave and be prepared and be, I don't know, less likely. I don't know, just try to picture like, oh yeah, this may lower the risk of injury, like at the next place you go to, or kind of like a self-care type thing. Like, this is how you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely like it. I mean, are you planning on having those athletic trainers for those teams help you with this or be involved in some way? Because they could help you. Like, you could do the main advocate, but like, if this follows through and you're able to do this, then they can help you kind of get everyone together and do it every week.
Yeah, they're going to be my selling points to the coaches, I think, because they already have that relationship. I think it's going to be hard for me to go in as a volunteer and be like, hey, coaches, follow my plan. I don't actually get paid to do this, so listen to me. But I think the staff athletic trainers will have more of a pull.
All recovery.
The other outcome measure I was looking at was the short form McGill Pain questionnaire. And this is where let me see if I can blow it up.
I think this is injury specific, isn't it?
To me, yes. I mean, listening to the athletes that were in my just general health and wellness class last semester, they'd always come in and be like, oh, I ache, or oh, this, like, whatever. And I'm like, well, what's your injury? They're like, oh, we're not injured. We just did lifting or we did sprints. And so I think the population I'm in, not to put down the athletes, I'm not bashing them. They're not NCAA.
No.
And so think of a fifth year high school senior.
Yeah. We get that.
So that's why I was kind of gravitating towards this because I think it covers everything as far as aches and pains, but like you said, to your point, it may just be more for injuries.
Yeah, I mean, I like this, but descriptive words like knowing or hot burning, when there's no specific injury, you're probably not going to feel stuff like that. Honestly, the only few that I could see is like tiring, exhausting, fearful for more emotional issues, cramping, and then like achy. Those are like four basic things I think that you feel after you're working out. Maybe you're not in shape or something like that.
Yeah.
So I like the other one better. I'm just honestly, I like the other one better. I think it's a little bit more applicable to the people that you're trying to survey and the reason why you're trying to survey.
Thank you. That's why I wanted to run it by you guys and see your opinions.
Yeah, I think this is a lot more applicable.
Yeah.
That's applicable to me right now. To fill that out. So
Good. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Thank you.
Yeah.
good job, people.
I think you guys are onto something.
Job.
All right.
Everyone has good ideas.
Any-
Excited.
Any other comments or anything?
No.
Okay. All right.